This is a long one, so stick around if you're prepared or catch up later when it suits you. In this video, we'll explore the dark fates of 5 royal families whose legacies remain overshadowed by their chilling misfortunes. Our journey begins with a dynasty whose power once stretched across Europe, but whose bloodline bore a legacy far more haunting than their crown. 1. The Habsburg Curse. The Habsburgs were not just a family, they were an empire. Spanning centuries, their dynasty ruled over vast territories, including Spain, Austria, the Holy Roman Empire, and parts of Eastern Europe. But with immense power came a darker legacy, a genetic and historical curse that many believe doomed their family line. To secure their political alliances, the Habsburgs married within their own family, leading to a genetic bottleneck that had devastating consequences. By the 16th and 17th centuries, inbreeding had become so rampant that genealogists estimate over 90% of their marriages were between first cousins or closer. This practice led to a series of health issues, most famously the Habsburg jaw, a protruding chin so severe it caused difficulty eating and speaking. The most infamous victim of this genetic curse was Charles II of Spain, known as El Hechizado or the Bewitched. Born in 1661, Charles suffered from a litany of physical and mental disabilities. His jaw was so deformed he could barely chew, and his body was riddled with ailments. Perhaps most tragically, Charles was unable to produce an heir, a devastating blow to the continuity of the dynasty. Recent genetic studies have identified that Charles II had an inbreeding coefficient of 0.25, equivalent to that of a child born to sibling parents, one of the highest ever recorded in royal history. The severe extent of his disabilities caused him to be bedridden for long periods, making governance nearly impossible and leaving Spain vulnerable to external threats. Documents from his reign show that Charles's court was plagued by superstitions, with officials frequently consulting astrologers and healers in futile attempts to cure his ailments. His death in 1700 marked the end of the Spanish Habsburg line, leading into the War of the Spanish Succession, which reshaped the balance of power in Europe. While their physical health was visibly affected, the Habsburgs also seemed to attract political and personal misfortunes. Wars plagued their reign, draining their vast empire's resources. The 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648, fought under their leadership, devastated Europe, leaving millions dead and the empire weakened. Additionally, internal power struggles and rebellions further chipped away at their influence. One of the most mysterious aspects of the Habsburg curse lies in their deaths. Several members of the family died under unusual circumstances, sparking rumors of supernatural intervention. By the 18th century, nearly all male members of the family displayed some level of physical or mental impairment due to prolonged inbreeding. Scientific studies suggest that the Habsburg jaw was a result of genetic conditions like mandibular prognathism and maxillary deficiency. The family's obsessive fixation on maintaining their royal bloodline ultimately diminished their capacity to adapt politically and socially. For instance, Emperor Maximilian I, one of the earliest Habsburg rulers, reportedly sought out astrologers to understand his dynasty's fate, fearing his family was destined for ruin. His obsession with omens and superstitions became a defining trait for future Habsburg rulers. Even in their later years, the Habsburgs were not spared from misfortune. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, whose assassination in 1914 sparked World War I, was another tragic figure in the family's long history. His death marked the beginning of the end for the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Officially dissolving in 1918 after centuries of Habsburg rule, although the Habsburgs no longer rule today, their legacy lives on, not just in history books, but in the enduring fascination with their tragic fate. The curse of the Habsburgs reminds us of the fragility of even the most powerful empires, where no amount of influence could shield them from the consequences of their own choices. Even though the Habsburgs no longer rule today, their story serves as a haunting reminder of how power cannot shield anyone from the consequences of human choices. From inbreeding to political turmoil, their legacy is one of both immense influence and tragic inevitability. But the Habsburgs were not alone in their misfortunes. On the other side of Europe, another royal family faced an eerily similar fate, one that intertwined their wealth and mystique with revolution and tragedy. 2. The Romanovs of Russia. Few royal families are as synonymous with opulence and tragedy as the Romanovs. For over 300 years they ruled Russia, steering one of history's most vast and complex empires. Yet despite their immense wealth and influence, their dynasty ended in bloodshed, shrouded in revolution, mystery, and whispers of a prophetic curse. The Romanov dynasty began in 1613, restoring order to a fractured Russia after the tumultuous time of troubles. Over the centuries, they expanded the empire's borders and cemented their place as one of Europe's most powerful monarchies. Their reign was marked by opulence, including the construction of the Winter Palace and the breathtaking Fabergé eggs. However, by the early 20th century, unrest brewed beneath the surface. Peasant uprisings, military defeats, and industrial strife created a volatile political climate. At the center of this collapse was Nicholas II, the last Tsar of Russia. A devout man, but a poor strategist, Nicholas struggled to reconcile his autocratic beliefs with the demands of a modernizing world. His mishandling of the Russo-Japanese War and World War I, combined with his failure to address the grievances of his people, made the Romanovs increasingly unpopular. Data shows that between 1905 and 1917, over 10,000 strikes and protests erupted across Russia, reflecting widespread unrest under Nicholas's reign. The empire's population had nearly doubled since the 19th century, exacerbating food shortages and housing crises that further fueled revolutionary sentiment. Military defeats, such as the catastrophic loss of 400,000 men during the Brusilov offensive in 1916, eroded the army's loyalty to the Tsar. Economists have noted that the Russian economy stagnated during this period, with industrial output failing to meet wartime demands. All of his dissatisfaction culminated in the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, sealing the fate of the family. Central to the Romanovs' downfall was Grigory Rasputin, a Siberian mystic who gained the family's trust through his alleged ability to heal Alexei, the heir to the throne, who suffered from hemophilia. Rasputin's influence, coupled with his scandalous lifestyle, made him a target of both court gossip and political enemies. Before his assassination in 1916, Rasputin reportedly issued a chilling prophecy. If he were killed by royal allies, the Romanov family would not survive another 2 years. Eerily, within 18 months of his death, Nicholas II, his wife Alexandra, and their 5 children were executed in a grim basement in Yekaterinburg. Rasputin's murder was orchestrated by Prince Felix Yusupov and Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich, who believed his influence threatened the monarchy's survival. The detailed autopsy revealed that Rasputin survived poisoning and gunshots, only succumbing to drowning, fueling myths about his resilience. The Romanovs' association with Rasputin isolated them from the nobility, who viewed the mystic as a corrupting influence. Within weeks of their execution, Soviet forces systematically dismantled symbols of the Romanov dynasty, erasing their presence from public consciousness. Their execution sparked decades of speculation, particularly around Grand Duchess Anastasia, rumored to have escaped. Imposters like the infamous Anna Anderson claimed to be Anastasia, fueling public fascination. In 1991, remains matching the Romanovs were discovered, but 2 bodies were missing. Finally, in 2007, the last remains were confirmed through DNA evidence, putting the escape theories to rest. Yet the mystery of Anastasia remains a poignant symbol of the Romanovs' enduring allure. The Romanovs' story is one of grandeur and devastation. Their lavish lifestyle and tragic downfall highlight the fragility of power when disconnected from the needs of the people. From their gleaming palaces to their tragic deaths, the Romanovs remind us of the fine line between majesty and misfortune. As we leave Russia's icy palaces, we journey to France, where another royal family faced their own dramatic downfall and would see their reign shattered by revolution, prophecy, and bloodshed. 3. The House of Bourbon. Few royal families have experienced the heights of grandeur and the depths of ruin like the Bourbons of France. Rising to dominate European politics in the 16th and 17th centuries, the Bourbon dynasty reached its zenith under the reign of Louis XIV, the Sun King, only to crumble in the chaos of the French Revolution. The story of the Bourbons is a chilling reminder that no monarchy, no matter how powerful, is immune to downfall. The Bourbon dynasty began in 1589, when Henry IV ascended to the throne of France, bringing stability after decades of religious wars. Under his rule and that of his successors, the Bourbons transformed France into a cultural and military powerhouse. By the 17th century, under the reign of Louis XIV, France stood as the dominant force in Europe, symbolized by the opulence of Versailles and the king's proclamation, "I am the state." During Louis XIV's reign, France's population grew to over 20 million, making it the largest in Europe and a key factor in its military dominance. The construction of Versailles consumed an estimated 25 million livres, about $300 million in today's terms, and strained the royal treasury. Under Louis XIV, France fought 4 major wars, including the War of Spanish Succession, which resulted in massive territorial gains but left the economy in disarray. Despite its grandeur, Versailles symbolized the monarchy's detachment from the realities of rural poverty and economic inequality. At the height of their power, cracks began to form. Extravagant spending, relentless wars, and growing inequality sowed seeds of discontent that would eventually lead to the dynasty's undoing. The fall of the Bourbons is most famously linked to Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, whose reign coincided with one of the most turbulent periods in French history. As the monarchy's finances crumbled under mounting debt, the king and queen became the focal points of public outrage. Marie Antoinette, in particular, earned the ire of the populace with rumors of her extravagance, epitomized by the infamous and possibly apocryphal phrase, "Let them eat cake." A series of eerie events seemed to foreshadow their fate. Reports of strange omens, including a freakish, blood-red sky over Versailles and collapsing palace structures, spread among the superstitious. Their eventual capture and execution during the French Revolution in 1793 marked the violent end of the French monarchy and sent shockwaves across Europe. The storming of the Bastille in 1789 marked the revolution's beginning, with over 800 rioters participating in the symbolic attack on royal authority. Historical records show that by 1792, public debt had reached 4 billion livres, further inflaming revolutionary fervor. Marie Antoinette's trial revealed the depth of public hatred, as fabricated accusations of incest were used to vilify her. Louis XVI's execution in 1793 marked the first time in French history that a monarch was formally tried and sentenced by his own people. Even after their fall from power, the Bourbons' misfortunes continued. During the restoration of the monarchy in 1814, tensions between the old guard and a modernizing France made stability impossible. The last Bourbon king, Charles X, was overthrown in 1830 during the July Revolution. He lived the remainder of his life in exile, a shadow of the once mighty dynasty. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the Bourbon story is its continued resonance. Many historians suggest their downfall reflects a broader pattern seen in powerful families. Opulence leads to detachment, and detachment breeds downfall. The Bourbon story reminds us that even the mightiest thrones can be overturned by the tides of change. From the decadence of Versailles to the bloody scaffold, the Bourbon story is a testament to the fragility of monarchy. Like the Romanovs and Habsburgs, their rise and fall are steeped in both human error and the forces of history. As we move to the next chapter, we'll uncover the tale of another ill-fated dynasty, where betrayal and bloodshed shaped their cursed legacy. 4. The House of Stuart. Among Europe's most ill-fated dynasties, the House of Stuart is steeped in betrayal, religious strife, and violent ends. Their rise to power in Scotland and England was marked by ambition and turbulence. But their downfall came with bloodshed and revolution. The Stuarts left a legacy as a family haunted by their own decisions, and perhaps by a darker curse. The Stuarts' tumultuous reign began in 1371 with Robert II, the first Stuart king of Scotland. Over time, the family rose to prominence, uniting the crowns of England and Scotland under James VI of Scotland, who became James I of England in 1603. This union of crowns was meant to symbolize stability, but instead became a source of tension. James I's attempts to centralize power alienated both Parliament and the people, laying the groundwork for conflict. His son, Charles I inherited not only the throne, but also his father's struggles with authority. Charles's belief in the divine right of kings and refusal to compromise with Parliament led to the English Civil War, which ultimately cost him his throne and his head. In 1649, Charles I was executed, marking the first and only time in English history a monarch was publicly tried and beheaded. The trial of Charles I set a precedent for limiting monarchical power, which influenced future constitutional developments in Britain. During the English Civil War, over 200,000 people died, making it one of the deadliest conflicts in British history relative to population size. Parliamentary forces, known as the Roundheads, introduced innovative military strategies that reshaped European warfare. The execution of Charles I shocked Europe, with many monarchies tightening their control to avoid similar fates. Religious divisions added fuel to the Stuarts' troubles. The family's Catholic leanings clashed with England's Protestant majority, creating deep-seated animosity. Charles VI, who restored the monarchy after a brief Republican period, managed to maintain a fragile peace, but his brother and successor, James VI, was less fortunate. James II's open Catholicism sparked outrage, leading to the Glorious Revolution of 1688. James was overthrown and replaced by his Protestant daughter Mary II and her husband, William of Orange. This peaceful coup ended Stuart rule in England, though it came at a high cost. The Stuarts' claim to the throne was shattered, and James II lived out his days in exile. The final chapters of the Stuart dynasty are marked by rebellion and loss. James II's descendants, known as the Jacobites, waged numerous uprisings to restore their family to the throne. These efforts culminated in the disastrous Battle of Culloden in 1746, where the Jacobites were decisively defeated. The leader of this rebellion, Charles Edward Stuart, known as Bonnie Prince Charlie, became a tragic symbol of lost hope, dying childless and in obscurity. Throughout their history, the Stuarts were plagued by betrayal, infighting, and the inability to navigate the shifting political and religious landscapes of their time. Some attributed their misfortunes to a curse, while others saw them as the inevitable result of poor leadership and divided loyalties. The House of Stuart stands as a reminder that power without unity is doomed to fracture. Their reign was one of ambition and conflict, leaving a lasting mark on British history. But theirs is not the only tale of a dynasty torn apart. As we move to our final chapter, we'll explore the enigmatic curse of Egyptian curse, a mystery that transcends continents and millennia. 5. The curse of King Tut's lineage. In the world of ancient royalty, few figures are as shrouded in mystery as King Tutankhamun, the boy king of ancient Egypt. Though his reign lasted less than a decade, King Tut's legacy has endured for millennia, partly because of the ominous tales of a curse surrounding his lineage and the discovery of his tomb. But was this curse merely a story born of superstition, or did it have roots in the tragic history of his family? Tutankhamun ascended to the throne around 1332 BCE at the tender age of 9, during a turbulent period in Egypt's history. He was born into a deeply fractured royal line plagued by political strife and familial inbreeding. Modern DNA analysis has revealed that King Tut's parents were likely siblings, a common practice among Egyptian royals meant to preserve the divine bloodline. This, however, left the boy king with numerous health issues, including a clubfoot and a cleft palate, and made him vulnerable to illness. Modern studies using CT scans and DNA analysis confirmed that King Tut suffered from multiple conditions, including malaria and a degenerative bone disorder. Archaeological records suggest that King Tut relied on canes, with over 100 walking sticks found in his tomb. His frail health likely limited his ability to lead military campaigns, a significant role for pharaohs of his time. Historical accounts and inscriptions show that his death led to a brief power vacuum, contributing to Egypt's political instability. Tutankhamun's short reign ended mysteriously around 1323 BCE when he was only 18 or 19 years old. His death has been the subject of much speculation, with theories ranging from genetic disorders and accidents to outright murder. His family line, already weakened by years of inbreeding, came to an abrupt end, leaving Egypt in turmoil. Fast forward to 1922, when British archaeologist Howard Carter discovered Tutankhamun's nearly intact tomb in the Valley of the Kings. This momentous find was hailed as the archaeological discovery of the century, but it came with a dark twist. Shortly after the tomb was opened, members of the expedition began to experience a series of mysterious deaths. Lord Carnarvon, the financier of the dig, died suddenly from an infected mosquito bite. Others associated with the excavation also succumbed to unexplained illnesses or accidents, fueling rumors of an ancient curse. While many dismissed these deaths as coincidences, the media sensationalized the idea of a curse placed on anyone who disturbed the pharaoh's final resting place. Ancient inscriptions warning against disturbing tombs only added to the mystique. Modern investigations have debunked much of the so-called curse. Scientists have proposed that exposure to mold or bacteria within the sealed tomb could explain the illnesses experienced by the excavators. Nevertheless, the notion of a curse persists, amplified by popular culture and the allure of ancient Egypt's mysteries. His story is a potent reminder of the fragility of power and the mysteries that endure long after a ruler's death. From his short and troubled reign to the strange events surrounding his tomb, King Tut's legacy continues to captivate the world. As we reflect on the tragic fates of these 5 royal families, a striking pattern emerges. The fragility of even the most powerful dynasties when confronted with the forces of history, biology, and human nature. Each story we've explored, from the Habsburgs' inescapable genetic curse to the Romanovs' catastrophic disconnect from their people, reminds us that power is as precarious as it is intoxicating. It is not merely the possession of crowns or empires that determines a dynasty's endurance, but the choices they make, the alliances they form, and their ability to adapt to a rapidly changing world. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the fascinating and often haunting histories of these royal families. I hope you found their stories as captivating as I did, and perhaps even took away some new perspectives on how power and legacy intertwine with human frailty. Take care of yourselves, and if you'd like to explore more intriguing stories like this, feel free to stick around by subscribing or sharing this with someone who might enjoy it. Wishing you a wonderful day or night, wherever you are.